Welcome to Farm Charm Chic. I'm Emily. Today's episode is all about fall home decor DIYs. I just love when we finally get to do the fall DIYs. They are some of my favorites, and today's projects are beautiful. I'm so excited to share them with you. It's also part of a collaboration, and I'll explain that as we get into the video. If you like crafting, DIYs, dupes, hacks, thrift flips, or just creating in general, I would love if you would consider subscribing. If you do like any of today's projects, remember to hit that thumbs up, but let's go make some DIYs. A few videos back, I did a thrift flipping with my family video, and while my family was picking out some DIYs, I found these two beautiful Bunt pans, and I knew I wanted to grab them to make some pumpkins out of, so I've been holding on to them for a couple of months. Now this little copper one right here, it does have a little hanger on it like it was made for wall decor, so I don't think it was ever used to cook anything in, but this Bunt pan is heavy duty, it's beautiful, but I just loved the color, and if you saw the price on there, I only paid $1 for it. So both of these I paid $1 for. Great bargain, great deal, and they're going to make some beautiful pumpkins. To start with, I'm just taking some floral foam. You could use some styrofoam, just something to fill in the gap in the middle of this Bunt pan so we can fill it with a stem and some florals to kind of bring in that nice fall feel. I've seen a lot of these through Pinterest and my Instagram feed that people have done, and there's so many different ways to make these look like pumpkins. So I'm just kind of taking my spin on it today. I hope you guys enjoy this one. This is just a finial that I had. It's from Hobby Lobby, but any type of finial or even just a stick from your yard that you could cut down to make it look like the stem of a pumpkin would work great. So no need to get too fancy with that. I just painted mine green, and now I'm just putting a little bit of hot glue down on this floral foam, and I'm just putting some Spanish moss here. This is just going to help fill in all of the gaps here, give my florals something else to stick to besides that floral foam, and it's also just going to bring home that nice fall color. I love using Spanish moss in my fall DIYs. Now, first of all, I'm just going to dry fit. I just grabbed a bunch of my fall foliage, like fall florals rather, that I have here, and leaving some little succulents there, and I just brought them all out. And I'm just playing around just until I can kind of see if I like the way something looks or I don't. And this way, before I glue everything in place to be more of a permanent hold, I know if I like it. Now, one thing you could do is if this is a pan that you're not wanting to use any hot glue on or anything, you could skip the step of the hot glue and just dry fit everything in here and use your pan. Even if you did use a little bit of hot glue, you can still get that off of the pan. But this way, if you're not wanting to totally ruin a pan, you're just wanting it for decorational purposes, but then have it be functional, that's one thing to remember as well. So you could just totally dry fit all of your florals here and just leave it. I do end up gluing mine just so I could show you the process that I go through. Now with my leaves right here, this is a wonderful tip if you get some silk flowers or leaves that are very crumpled, especially from Dollar Tree. You guys know how some of those picks can look. Just blast them flat on a table with your little heat tool that blows the hot air there. That's just going to help flatten those out, and you can see how they went from very wrinkly to very flat. It's a great hack, and it works wonderful this time of year because I feel like all of the fall leaves that come into Dollar Tree especially look so crumpled and gross, and you just are tempted to not buy them, but never fear, this trick works wonders. I love using a little bit of pipberry here. You can see off to the right, that was just kind of a pick that I got at Hobby Lobby that had all of these little orange pipberries there that you can kind of make look like little corkscrews, like the little pumpkin vines or tendrils that come off of those pumpkins. And so I love using those. Now my stem was a little too green for the vibe that I was wanting to go for, so I'm just covering it with some antiquing wax. Once I get this completely covered, I'll take just a baby wipe or a wet paper towel and kind of just wipe, not kind of, but just wipe the excess off. And it's just going to leave you with a nice aged look there, more antique. You can kind of see how that will stay in all of the grooves on this little piece of this finial here. And I really do like the aged look that brings, and it kind of was more the vibe I was going for. Now that I've set everything in, I've dry fitted it to where I want it, I'm going to kind of take it out the best I can, almost like a clock. That's how it made sense in my mind anyway. I'm just taking all of these pieces out, placing them kind of where I had them set in my foam, and that way when I go back in to glue everything, I have it kind of in the area that I want. It doesn't look exactly the same, but I'm very pleased with how it turns out. I'm using a lot of hot glue to make sure that this stem doesn't go anywhere. It's not strong enough that you're going to want to pick this up by the stem by any means, but I definitely want that stem staying in place, not getting knocked over or anything like that. And the glue is going directly onto the foam. It's not going anywhere on my Bunt pan. Now I just kind of work in the same order, going with a little bit of hot glue on the ends. I think if I had one of those crocks that you're able to kind of dip your stem in with the hot glue. I've never had one of those, but this was one of those projects that I thought that might be worth having. If you have one of those with the little hot glue beads that you put in, this would be a perfect project to pull that out for and do this with. But you could also use any kind of glue that you like to use, crafting glue. Hot glue is just what my go-to, and so that's what I was using here, just a little bit on the stems, and then I go around and just stick each of them in, trying to get them as close to where I had them before, but just whatever feels good, because once they're glued in, you can still kind of have a little bit of wiggle room to manipulate them how you want, but they're gonna be pretty secure once you glue them in. When I found this Bunt pan, I was so excited with the color because it was already this beautiful harvest gold fall color. And I thought it would be so fun to do this with the pumpkin, but then this copper one I thought matched so well with it, so I thought they would be really cute together. I wanted to go for a more neutral look with this copper one. So this is just a peg from like a shaker shelf, and I'm just staining it with a little bit of antiquing wax to kind of make it look a little more aged. And then just a little bit of hot glue. It fit perfectly down, and there was this little indentation there, and it fit perfectly in there. And we're going to glue some stuff around it. I did not put any Spanish moss on this because I didn't really feel like it needed it. But with whatever florals you're deciding to do, some Spanish moss is a great filler to use. I just had these this was a package of the little cotton pods from Dollar Tree. There was 4 of them in there. I end up using 3. And then in between each of the cotton pieces here, you can see this is just a little bit of scrap leaf off of just one of those picks that I have off to the side there. I'll blast it with my heat tool to flatten it out, and you can see how flat that makes it. And then I just put a little bit of glue, and I'm going to just tuck one of these little leaves in between each of the cotton pieces of cotton. Are they cotton pods? Is that somebody told me in one of my videos what they were called, and now I cannot remember for the life of me. But I'm just going to stick some of those leaves in between all of those little pieces of cotton. Where this particular pan did not have a hole or recessed area, I wasn't too worried about actually gluing my piece directly, like the little florals directly onto the pan, since I don't really feel like this particular pot or pan was worth anything. The Bunt pan might have a little bit of historical value. I just wanted to kind of be as careful as I could not to have the glue touch that one. This one I feel is just more strictly decorational anyway. And so I didn't have a problem gluing things directly to it. Now these are just some pip berries on this. I thought it was fun to kind of bring that harvest color of pip berry in on this particular one to tie it in to our harvest gold Bunt pan that I've used. So I just thought it was kind of a fun way to bring the fall colors, but you could stay completely neutral, do some white pip berry, or skip this step altogether. I love wrapping it around like a pencil or a paintbrush as I'm doing here to give it that nice corkscrew look. I just really do think that kind of ties in the pumpkin vines and how they get all of those little corkscrews and curlicues everywhere. I thought that was a really fun touch. I think these turn out so pretty. How fun are these going to be to have for kitchen decor for fall? And where these are such like a neutral fall, you can put them up at the beginning of the season and leave them all throughout Thanksgiving or however long you leave your fall decor up. I think they're beautiful. I love this trend. You can search grandma's cabinet. Maybe you've even got a really fun Bunt pan. Check your thrift stores. Even if you don't find them in this color that I did, I've seen them done with all different colors, and I think they all turn out beautifully. What do you guys think of these? Today's video is part of an autumn mood collaboration, which means there's a playlist and it is full of all of these beautiful ladies' videos and DIYs for you. We all came up with some wonderful autumn and fall decor DIYs for you. These ladies are so inspirational to me. I just love them. This was put together by Linda at DIY by Design, and we have Patty from pattijgood and Wendy from White Sparrow Living, Luke 12:6 joining in today, as well as myself, and there are going to be so many amazing DIYs. All you have to do is look for that link to the playlist. It will be in my description box. I will also pin it in my comments so it's easy to find. When you click on that, it's going to take you right over to the playlist and play everybody's videos for you so you can sit back and enjoy and get all of those fall feels and get in the autumn mood. I am so excited with how this DIY turns out, and it's kind of questionable through the process. It was one of those I had to trust the process, and the end product is beautiful. So stay with me on this. This is just using some of the styrofoam pumpkins from Dollar Tree and a little bit of spackling, and I added a little bit of water to my spackling so it was a little bit more the consistency of like cake frosting, but you're going to have some texture in there with some little pieces of the spackling that kind of makes it look like the warty pumpkins that you've seen. So that's totally fine if your spackling is not smooth. In fact, you don't want it smooth. You want it to have more of that texture. But I'm just kind of spreading it over the pumpkin like frosting. I end up putting on some gloves because it does get a little messy. And I'm just covering all of the areas, trying to make sure that I don't need full coverage here to cover the orange. I just need coverage where it matches texture. So if I miss like a spot on the styrofoam, you're going to notice. So I just want to make sure that all of the styrofoam has a little bit of the spackling over it so the texture matches. You can kind of just see how I'm going all over like this. It's definitely messy, so just be aware of that. Now this pumpkin right here, this is completely dried, 24 hours, the spackling. I even took it outside and set it on my trampoline so I could make sure that the sun kind of really dried it well. And I'm covering it completely with some elephant chalk paint. I want this to kind of have almost like a concrete look. Now this particular one right here is another one that I had done, and I'm also painting it. So I've done two separate styrofoam pumpkins, same process, and I am painting my second one now with the same elephant chalk paint. So I'm just showing you here that I have two different ones, and I'm going to kind of do a little bit of a different technique on both of them. Either way, you just want to make sure that your spackling has completely dried, and then also let your paint dry before you move on to the next step. So on this one, I'm taking some more plaster and I'm going to spread this over my pumpkin. I know that I wanted a two-tone look with the white and the gray, and so I wanted to test out two different methods here, and I honestly don't have a preference over which one I like the best. I will say that this one has a more sturdy feel once it's done, but not enough that you would notice between the two and think that it was better than the other. So whichever method you feel like you would like to try, follow that, because they both turn out beautifully, but just slightly different. So I'm just covering this. I just wanted to be able to see a little bit of that gray peeking through. Again, kind of like a concrete feel. Now on this next one, I decided instead of doing another layer of the plaster, I wanted to just do paint and see if it works the same, because I thought, well, maybe this would be a little bit easier, and this method is a little bit easier, less messy. So it just kind of, again, depends on which one you think suits your type of DIY that you want to try. So I'm just going over with white paint. This would be fun to try with some different colors, I think. But honestly, at this point, I'm going, these just look I just was not sure about how this was going, but I always say trust the process, and I did. And oh my gosh, I just love these, especially if you're a crafter who likes to sell things for different boutiques or craft fairs, shows that you do. You could definitely do these. You'll have to do like kind of batch them and do the spackling on a bunch, let that dry for a day, and then move on to the next step. So it is something that'll take you a little bit of time, but you could easily do several of these, and I think that you could have a really good return for how much you've paid to make these. I think you could charge a very decent amount for these. So now I'm just moving on to the next step here, just touching up any area that I want to make sure that there's paint on. I will say that if you don't let these completely dry and you're painting them like this, what will happen is it will start to peel back. So if you notice that, just stop, let it dry some more, and then move on to the next step. I was even using my heat tool. You can kind of see at the bottom where some of that was lifting up because the bottom where it had set down hadn't dried completely. Really easy to fix though. Again, I just dried it and then just covered it with paint, and you cannot even tell. The fun part about these pumpkins is the texture that you're creating, and you really want to define that texture, almost like it's like this modern organic feel to these pumpkins. And so I just really, really wanted that warty texture we've created to really pop. So I felt like there was a little too much white. So I'm just taking my elephant chalk paint brush that has just a little bit. So I'm almost like dry brushing over the top of these. And that texture is so thick and so rich, it just picks up all of that little bit that's left in the brush and really defines that. Now, on the flip side of that, if you feel like you have too much white, you can go back in, too much gray, you can go back in with your white brush and do the same technique. In fact, you can go back and forth until you get your desired look. Just make sure you let it dry in between each time, so that way you're not smearing the paint. You're getting that true definition between the two. I just absolutely love how this texture looks. You can see here between the two how that gray pops on that one on the right. So I just decided to do the same thing with this other one and make sure that all of that texture pops with the gray on this one. So I just do that same thing, dry brushing over this one. After you've got your desired texture on there and the colors and everything, and it's completely dry, I'm going to go in here, and this is where you can have so much fun making this look like a pumpkin and adding whatever details you would like. I really wanted to go for a very, very neutral feel with these. So these are just a couple of sticks from my yard or my farm that I have that I love to use for pumpkin stems this time of year. And since these are those styrofoam pumpkins from Dollar Tree, you can just push those in. They will go right into the top, and then a little bit of hot glue holds them in place. And then I'm just going to put a little bit of Spanish moss over the top. That's just going to add a little bit of softness and texture. And you guys know that I love to use Spanish moss in fall DIYs, especially with pumpkins, because I feel like it does look like it just goes. It feels like it's the curly, cute little vines that you get with your pumpkins. It's a good color for fall, and especially where I'm trying to stick with the neutral tones here, it's really good. So you can see with this one here, I'm just a little bit of glue. I kind of put my little stick askew so it's not quite straight up. It's kind of off to the side. You can have so much fun doing all of these details with these pumpkins here. And then I'm just going to place the Spanish moss here and kind of push that stem where I want it situated off to the side there, and just kind of let that dry. I'm taking a little bit of barn wire. This is just fencing wire. You can use whatever kind of wire that you would like, or you can even skip using the wire and do, as you'll see me in a moment, use a little bit of pitberry on them or something. I just felt like this wire really kind of brought that modern farmhouse touch into it. Looks like the little tendril curlicue vines that you get on the pumpkins naturally, and it just adds another element into it. And all I do is I just kind of bend it almost into like a U shape with the both ends of the wire, I'm just sticking that into the styrofoam, going around my stem a little bit and sticking the other end right down into the styrofoam. And so that way you're not having any sharp edges exposed or anything like that. You can touch those with some glue if you want to have them stay a little bit more permanent on there. But honestly, if you stick them down in far enough, they're not going to be coming out unless you were to like pull on them. Now on this second one over here, this is where I started to do some of the pitberry. I have some white. If you wanted to bring a color in, you could, but I just really, again, wanted these to be very neutral, looking. And so I'm just going to curl these around just a little paintbrush here to get the curlicue vines on those. I'll snip it off there. And then I do the exact same thing. I just stick that wire, since these are on a wire, down into the styrofoam and just kind of curl that around the stem, and I'll stick the other end back down into that styrofoam. I just love how these are looking. You'll have to let me know what you think of these. These were so fun to create, and I really just wanted just a fun, something a little bit different. I don't know. I'm so excited to put these in my decor. I just think they're so fun. In fact, I liked the pitberry on the one so much, I decided to kind of do another little bit to put on the other one, because I really thought they looked cute with that. And then in that same vein, I take a little bit of the fencing wire that I have and put a little bit of that onto the other pumpkin, so that way they're almost identical in the way that I did each of them. So if you're batch doing these, you're wanting to sell these, make it as easy as possible, make them all look the same, or you could even do a little bit different, something to speak to different buyers, different colors. But I just really think these turn out so cute. I am so pleased with how these turned out. They are exactly what I wanted them to be. You would never know that these were the Dollar Tree styrofoam pumpkins underneath here. Just look at that beautiful texture that you get on these, and just think of all the different possibilities you could do with different tones or colors that you wanted to play around with. I just think this is just such a fun, different way, different treatment to do for these pumpkins, and I just think they turn out beautiful. Very classy and high-end, in my opinion. I just think they're going to be so fun to have in my fall decor. I would love to know what you guys think of these. I really love checking the sign blank section at my craft stores, and when I was at Hobby Lobby the other day, they had some clearance sign blanks, and you can see this one was normally around $22 and it was on clearance for about $5. Now they have signs this size all the time, and you just wait for them to go 40 or 50% off to purchase them, but if you find them on clearance, definitely grab them. Now they have this beautiful aisle at the craft store, Hobby Lobby, at JoAnns, Michael's. They sell a lot of different sizes of letters that you can get to have say things. They also sell them at Walmart. They don't have as much of a selection there, but they're growing. They may get to that point. I also know on Etsy you can buy letter cutouts. I've seen tin ones at the craft store. And I also, if you like, have a cutting machine, you could do this out of vinyl if you wanted. I just got some of the letters to spell out the word pumpkin, and they were very white and crisp, so I wanted to kind of age them a little bit. So I'm taking just a little bit of Waverly's Stone color, and I'm just kind of dipping my finger in that, and I go along the edge of each of these letters. I thought that was kind of a subtle way to age these to match the gray that's on the sign that I'm using. And I even will go in and dry brush a little bit on these. Very light distressing, but enough just so they're not so like in your face, bright white and shiny. This was just such a fun and quick project. It's always nice getting a sign blank that's already ready to go, and especially if you grab your letters, you don't even have to distress them. You're just ready to glue your letters down and have a beautiful looking sign for a fraction of what you would pay for it if you were to buy it new or buy it at a craft fair. Now I'm just lining my ruler, my straight edge up with the edge of the sign, and also kind of helping to get those letters Actually, you can see I'm bumping the one letter there. But this is just kind of, and I apologize, you have to look at my hair here. I'm so sorry. But I'm just doing my ruler this way to kind of help get these as straight as I can. That is one thing when you're working with 3D letters like this versus a cutting machine, is your transfer paper that you have on a cutting machine eliminates this step here because everything's already like cut like perfectly in a straight line. So that is one thing when you're doing the 3D letters like this. I love the look of them, but I always stress out a little bit on getting everything lined up perfectly. So after I get everything lined up to where it is spaced correctly and all in line, I'm just putting my first letter there. I put a little bit of glue underneath it to kind of help it. And then I can kind of use that as my jumping off point for the rest of them. And you can kind of see here that I matched each letter up with the letter before. And I even pull out my ruler, the straight edge, to kind of line the rest of them up here. I think once I glued that down, I went, ooh, I probably should make sure I'm getting these. So you'll see here just a little bit of hot glue. You can use super glue. I've used a lot with these. Works with like the Gorilla Glue, works really well. But I was just using a little bit of hot glue today when I had everything going. So that's just what I stuck with. But here's where I put my ruler down so I can line this up, and I just set this letter right down, making sure that everything is level and in line so it all looks nice and professional looking. One thing I do is I take my heat tool here, my heat gun, and I go over it because when you're using hot glue, sometimes you get those little webs, the stringy things from hot glue. Using your heat tool is going to help to melt those away, almost like vaporize them. And so I always go over my project with that, give it a blast or two just to kind of get rid of all of those. Now, these were still a little bit shiny in my opinion, and I wanted them to be more matte. The rest of this sign is matte. So rather than sanding everything, I just went with some matte Mod Podge over the top of them, or satin Mod Podge, to kind of take that sheen away to make them look not so glossy, but have that more matte finish so the sign all looked cohesive together. But this was such a fun and simple project, and I do love how this turns out. It's such a great size. I'm so excited to use this in my decor, and for less than about $20 that I paid for the letters and the sign, I think this is such a great addition to my fall decor. What do you guys think of this? I just love when we finally get to do fall DIYs. I'm so excited that the season is here. It is so fun, and I feel like these were just a perfect way to jump in and get those fall creative juices flowing. Remember that today's video is part of a playlist, so look for that link in my description box and in my comments. Say hello to all of the other ladies participating in today's playlist. If you're coming from their channels, welcome. I'm so glad that you're here, and I hope you like what you've seen. Do you guys have a favorite DIY today? I would have a very hard time picking, but I truly love my little stucco pumpkins, I guess, the little plaster pumpkins. I think they turned out so cute and so fun, and I am just tickled with how beautiful and simple they turned out to be. I just love them. I'm excited to put them in my decor. I love all of these pieces. They're going to go in my home beautifully. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope that you guys enjoyed today's video. I'll see you next time. Happy crafting! If you liked the video that you just saw and you want to keep crafting together, here's another video that you might enjoy. And as always, remember to like and subscribe. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you next time.